What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, Under Center with Abelson, presented by the Real Spiel Podcast. We are here. Championship weekend is here. We got some teams lined up to go out and win some conference championship games. Conference championship feels like they're dying a little bit. It feels like they're not as valuable as they once used to be. Maybe the SEC still is, but as far as like the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big 12, it doesn't really feel like those are as strong as they used to be. But conference championships still mean something to me, and they definitely still mean something over here at Under Center. So we will be talking about this. We will be picking some games, giving you some previews, telling you who I like, what I like, picking some spreads. We are officially at 41-42. We ended the regular season barely at 500. So we got a few weeks and a handful of games over the course of the next month and a half to get over 500 or get way under 500. But I'm optimistic, so I think we're going to get over 500 and finish above 500. Before we get started, as always, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get into the show. First up, we'll start with the SEC championship game, Georgia versus Alabama, and yet they meet again. It just feels like every year you can definitely write in either Georgia or Alabama playing in the SEC championship game, and I'm pretty sure this is 10 out of the last 11 years. I think Georgia and or Alabama is it that they've played each other? We're at 10 out of the last 11 years, Georgia or Alabama have won the SEC championship game. Last time we saw this game was in 2023. That was the year that Alabama beat Georgia. The year that Florida State didn't make the college football playoff. That was Saban's last year. And that game was an exciting game. So always, as with these teams, it's always going to be an exciting game. You can always basically kind of count on that. It's hardly ever going to be a blowout. Georgia is coming in as a 2.5 point favorite. I hate it because I already know which way I'm going to pick on this game. I know which way I'm going to pick, but it just doesn't. I just don't feel confident because Alabama they have Georgia's number. There's just no other way to say it. Alabama has Georgia's number. Kirby Smart is 1-7 against Alabama since he has taken over, and Kirby Smart's amazing. He's a dog. He is, in my opinion, the best coach in college football, but he has an Alabama problem. And Alabama came into his house into a 34 home game winning streak in week 4. And what happened? Alabama came in there and won. They came in there and won. Georgia had their chances. They could have won. They had a touchdown. They had a young guy drop a potential touchdown catch in the fourth quarter. He would have ran in for a wide open touchdown. That would have likely given them the lead. And I'm confident to say that they would have won just because I don't think either team scored in the second half. I think it was 24-21 at halftime, and the game ended 24-21. I don't think either team scored at half. I definitely know Alabama didn't score at half or in the second half. But nonetheless, Georgia did lose, but I feel completely different about these teams. Well, these teams I think are on completely different sides of the pendulum at this point. I'm not as high on Alabama as I was early into the season because that was the start of Alabama's run where they kind of just took over. That was the start of it. But I'm just not as high on Alabama now that I was at the beginning of the season. Because they beat Georgia, they beat Mizzou, they beat Vandy, all in like a 3-game stretch, and Alabama just has not looked that great. They just have not looked that great. They struggled against Auburn. They went up 17-0 and still struggled against Auburn, letting Auburn call all the way back. The game was tied 20-20. You had to go for it on a fourth down in your own end zone just to feel comfortable with winning the game. They lost obviously to Oklahoma. I mean, it just really hasn't been that great for Alabama recently, man. It really hasn't. Jam Miller, the running back, is hurt, which I don't even know how big of a factor that's going to be, seeing that they were struggling to run the ball in the first place. Like even with Jam Miller, they were struggling to run the ball. It seemed like after the Mizzou game, it felt like they may have found something with the run game, but it never materialized. And I think at that point they kind of just abandoned the run and we're going to be a passing team, and that's kind of what they've been all year. So I can't be confident to say that Alabama's going to be able to run the ball because I haven't seen it all year. We're in the conference championship game. At this point, teams are who they are. They, in my opinion, they are who they are. But yeah, it's like, look at this. Over the last 5 games, Alabama's only had a 100-yard rusher a single game this year, and that was Jam Miller against Vanderbilt. Since then, they haven't had a single rusher run over 100 yards. 85, 49, 26, 21, 60, 62, 83. And I think Jam Miller got hurt in that Auburn game. But, yeah, man, and it's going to be tough because this Georgia team has gotten so much better over the second half of the year, I think, on the defensive side, specifically the defensive line, because that's a place where Georgia, I'm not going to say struggled, but they were pretty ineffective on the defensive line early in the season. Because when we think of Georgia, we're thinking of, great defense line. I mean, they have 4 guys from the Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter. They have 3 guys, Jordan Davis, all from the defensive line on the Eagles. So that's what Georgia's been synonymous with. But early in the year, they were having trouble getting home on the quarterback. They were bottom 3rd in the country in sacks. They were not really pressuring the ball. They weren't really getting in turnovers or anything like that. But recently, the defensive line has been playing extremely well. And the defense all around has been playing extremely well. I mean, they gave up 10 points against Texas, 9 points against Georgia Tech, who, I mean, say what you want about Georgia Tech, ACC, blah, blah, blah. Georgia Tech has a good offense. They have, Haynes King has been balling this year, and that offense has been pretty good this year, and to only give up 9 against that team. So, again, I'm just so much more higher on Georgia right now than I am on Alabama. I think Georgia's just playing complete all around. Gunnar Stockton's just absolutely balling. Nate Frazier is starting to come on his own. Like, he's really, really starting to come on. Because, again, at the beginning of the season, he had some fumbling problems. They kind of went to a couple different backs, like Stockton and Bowens. But in the last 4 games, Nate Frazier has led the team in rushing yards. He had 181 against Mississippi State, 72 against Texas, 54 against Charlotte, and he had 108 against Georgia Tech. And Georgia's been waiting. They've been waiting on that. They've been waiting on, him to kind of step up into it. He was supposed to be their number 1 back coming into the season. So it took him a little bit this season to get going, but I think now he's really going. So just a mix of Gunnar Stockton playing extremely well, the defensive line and the defense all around playing much better, and now that they have, a run game, a pretty consistent run game at this point, it's just going to be hard for me to take Alabama. Even though I know Alabama owns Georgia. I know they do. And this is probably where I'm going to be completely wrong. And Alabama's going to end up winning. But I just got to take Georgia, man. I just got to take Georgia. Kirby Smart. I'm taking the better team. They've been playing much better down the stretch. Alabama's been struggling a little bit down the stretch. So, yeah, we are going to take Georgia -2.5. I will say, though, something that Georgia's going to have to change from that first game is they're going to have to get off the field. Because that was the biggest reason why, the defense specifically, that was the biggest reason why Alabama was really able to win that game, was because Georgia could not get off the field. Alabama went, 13 for 19 on 3rd down in that game. Ty Simpson was absolutely just ripping them apart and spinning that pill. Georgia could not stop them, could not get off the field. And I think Georgia went like 2 for 8 in that game on third down. So I think that's going to be one of the biggest factors. Georgia, they have to get off the field. And I think they will because, again, the defense is playing much better. The running game is playing much better. I think they'll have a good time or easy time, controlling the time of possession with that run game. Gunnar Stockton, he's just been making great decision after great decision lately. So, we're taking Georgia -2.5. Next up, we got Indiana versus Ohio State. The battle of the best teams in the country, a 1 versus 2 matchup. That's crazy because I didn't know this. I heard somebody say that this is the first 1 versus 2 game in a conference championship game since like the Florida Alabama Tim Tebow days, which is kind of wild to think about. But I think by the time week 7, like week 6 or 7 came, really like week 7, I think everybody knew this was going to be what the Big Ten championship game was going to be. I know Indiana did have a little scare against Penn State, but outside of that, really, I forgot what that game was. After Indiana beat Oregon, I think that's when everybody was like, all right, this is going to be the Big Ten championship game. And everybody's seen this coming. FanDuel started allowing you to bet on this like week 7, dude. But yeah, Indiana versus Ohio State. Ohio State coming into this thing as a 4.5-point favorite. I mean, wire to wire, Ohio State has just been the best team in the country. They started the season ranked, number 3, beat Texas. And from week 2 and on, they've been the number 1 team in the country. Skating by, not really challenged, not really sweating. A lot of people saying we haven't even seen Ohio State's A- game or A+ game. Like, they've just been cruising in B+, A-, and they've just been absolutely dominating. The defense somehow is way better this year than it was last year, which is crazy to think when they lost a lot of talent. But a lot of people, they have, on the defensive line, they're not as good as they were last year. I think the defensive line last year with JT Tuimoloau, and Jack Sawyer and those guys, the defensive line was better last year, but I do think the defense in general is better this year in terms of the players that they have. Because they still have guys like Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, who is arguably the best defensive player in the country. You say that, and then you say, oh, wait, they still have Caleb Downs as well. And they, Igbenogsa, the quarterback, is, probably going to get drafted in the top couple rounds. So they still have a lot of talent last year. They might not have the depth maybe that they had last year defensively, but in terms of top end talent on the defense side, they still have it. And then you bring in Patricia, defensive mastermind, and it's just a recipe for success. It's just a recipe for success, and that's what it's been all year. Teams have just completely struggled to score the ball on Ohio State this year, and I just don't know what else to say because it's crazy. It's crazy to think that this Ohio State's defense is just in general, the team in general is better this year than they were last year. I want to go look and see the points that Ohio State have given up. Because it's crazy. They've given up less than 100 points, I think, all year. They started out, they gave up 7, 0, 9, 6, 3, 16, 0, 14, 10, 10, 9, 9. 16 points is the most points Ohio State has given up all year. And they've only given up double-digit points 4 times. 10, 10, 14, and 16. 4 times. Just absolutely insane, dude. Absolutely insane. And obviously the offense is it's weird because it doesn't feel explosive. It doesn't feel high octane. But then they're just consistently turning out 30 and 40-point games. I just don't know why, though. I don't know why, because the offense has been explosive. The offense has been, I guess maybe because it's not as flashy. Like it's more of like a conservative, try and run the ball, try and take what the defense gets you type of style. Take your shots when they're there over the top. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping. Maybe I'm the one that's tripping. But whatever. Nonetheless, it's still absolutely working. But last game against Michigan, that was the first game where I was really like, okay, this Ohio State team's for real. Because really, up until the point, the schedule has not been that great. They played a ranked Illinois team who pretty much was overly ranked for most of the season. They played Penn State once, Penn State's team just kind of fell off. They played a Washington team who was good, but not really a great team. So, like, in that Texas team, okay, they played, but that was Texas in the beginning of the year when Texas wasn't looking great. The first 4 or 5 games, Arch Manning was terrible. The offensive line was bad. They just weren't playing good. So, like, the question for Ohio State this year has been, like, are they legit? Like, are they really a good team, or are they just a product of an easier schedule? I think we got a lot of questions answered against Michigan, especially with it being a rivalry game, with Michigan having Ohio State's number over the last several years. Got a lot of questions answered. They come out the gate not looking that great, and they still find a way to just completely dominate. The biggest takeaway that I got from that game was just their ability to run the ball. Because we hadn't really seen that from Ohio State really all year. For them to just say, hey, we are going to run the ball every single time, and there is nothing you're going to do about it. Nothing you are going to do about it. They control the time of possession and everything. So seeing that from Ohio State going to these playoffs in this Big Ten championship game is scary, man. It's scary. I will say, though, this is the best team. Indiana is the best team that they have easily played all year. I mean, not even a question. Like, obviously, that was dumb of me to say. But more importantly, this is the first team who has the ability to hurt you through the air and through the ground. Because Texas, beginning of the year, I mean, Arch Manning, he couldn't even throw his arm above his shoulder in the first game. But his mechanics were so out of whack, people were saying that he was hurt. Illinois, whatever. Michigan, Bryce Underwood seems to be about a year away from really elevating. And the run game was not really that great that day last weekend. But this Indiana team, they run for over 250 yards per game. Mendoza, he's throwing. Mendoza, he's just absolutely spinning the pill, like getting whatever he wants through the air. Like, this is a team who can easily throw for 300 yards, but also run for 300 yards. So a well-balanced team who has backs who can hurt you. The receivers are great. The quarterback is playing elite ball. Ohio State's going to have to bring their game. I don't think this is a game that Ohio State will just be able to walk into and just kind of coast through. I do think Ohio State is going to have to bring their game, and I have no question that they're not going to. I mean, this is an Ohio State team that's won 16 straight games since that Michigan State game, or the Michigan game last year. They've beaten, 7? They've won 7 straight ranked games dating back to the playoffs last year, 7 or 8 straight ranked games. I have no doubt that Ohio State is going to bring their A game. But Indiana, we're going to find out, man. We are going to find out. Again, we got some questions answered with Indiana, especially coming back from last year with just people not thinking that they're a for real team. They had an easy schedule. They got blown out by Notre Dame. They got blown out by Ohio State in their only tough games. But that Oregon game, a 3-game stretch. They had Illinois, Iowa, and Oregon. I mean, they just absolutely dog-walked Illinois. Iowa on the road is always a tough matchup, and they won. And then they followed that up with dominating Oregon on the road as well. It's safe to say that this Indiana team, if you still don't believe in Indiana, then I guess that you just still think that this is the Indiana team from years past, I guess, or you just maybe just don't watch college football, like not even trying to hate, like you probably just maybe aren't tuned into college football, because this Indiana team is they're good. They are a much better team than they were last year. Much better. They have better receivers. The running game's better. The quarterback play is better, and it's shown. It's shown. Um, if Indiana wants to win, they are going to have to limit turnovers. I know that sounds cliche, but with how well this Ohio State defense is and how well their offense has been clicking, you cannot by any means. Ohio State, I heard the stat of Ohio State's like time of possessions, like their average time of possession in their games, and it's been almost like 2-1 in time of possessions. They've just been absolutely dominating the time of possession. So if Indiana is giving the ball up, turning the ball over, that's gonna be a recipe for disaster. Because you're giving a team who already dominates time of the possession and already, dominates that. You're giving them more possessions and more time with the ball, and that's going to create less possessions and less margin for error for you. And I think, excuse me, you just have to continue just being a balanced team. Don't try and get in the shootout. Don't try and air things out. Don't try and be this tough team who thinks we're going to go out of there and run the ball down the throats. Because you're likely not going to. That's why I say run defense is, top 10 in the country. They're a top 10 run defense in the country. Like, you are not just going to run the ball down their throat. But you can still run effectively. You can run effectively without dominating the run game. On first and second down, picking up 4 or 5 yards, getting short and manageables, letting Mendoza not be in third and longs. Because if this Ohio State defense can tee off on you, you're gonna be in it. It's gonna be a long night. But yeah, I think what I'm most excited to see is just the coaching. Kurt Cignetti, these are arguably the best 2 coaches of the last 2 years. If I had to rank the coaches, the best top 3 coaches of the last 3 years, it'd be Ryan Day, 16 straight. It'd probably be Kurt Cignetti, Marcus Freeman, maybe Kirby Smart. But I am excited to see the matchup between these 2 coaches, the game plans that they come into this game with. And I think this is going to decide the Heisman. Because I think the voting doesn't go in, I think, till after Saturday night. Because I think usually the voting stops, like, after rivalry weekend. This year, I think they're not. I think they're just extending the time you can vote. So I think whoever plays the best, because they're neck and neck. Like, in the odds, they are just absolutely neck and neck. Let me see if I can go find it. Heisman. Yeah, Fernando Mendoza's plus 160, and Julian Sang's plus 220. Diego Pavia is plus 170. Wow. But yeah, likely the winner of this game is going to win the Heisman. So yeah, but I do have, as far as my pick goes, I have Ohio State minus 4.5. And like this, I'm an Ohio State hater. Like, first and foremost, I am an Ohio State hater. Don't have any ties to Ohio State. Don't have any ties to Michigan, but I'm just an Ohio State hater. But this has nothing to do with Indiana. Indiana is a great team. They are the second best team in the country. But I think there's a gap, man. I think there's a gap between Ohio State and the next best team, and I think there's a marginal gap. And this line opened at like 5.5 or 6.5, and I was hoping that it went down. And it did to 4.5. I just think Ohio State is the most complete team. The defense, the offense, the coaching, the players, everything. As long as Cardell Tate and Jeremiah Smith are healthy, I think Ohio State's going to win this game, and I think they're not going to win it comfortably, but I think they're going to win and cover. Ohio State minus 4.5. Next up, we got BYU versus Texas Tech, a rematch of the game earlier, college game day. Um, hey, if you're BYU, I hope you guys have been going into every single game since that game, just only thinking about Texas Tech because they spanked y'all. They just absolutely spanked y'all. They told y'all, and what's crazy is Texas Tech, that first matchup, they didn't have their best A game offensively. Defensively, couldn't get any better. Only reason BYU scored was because it was late and the game was already over. Offensively, Texas Tech left a lot on the bone. They left a lot of meat on the bone. They ended up having like 3 or 4 red zone trips where they had to settle for field goals. And they still scored what? It was 26-7 or whatever it was. And they had multiple. They at one point in the red zone they went for it on fourth down, didn't get it where they could have kicked the field goal. That was one of the red zone trips. There was a couple of the red zone trips where they had to settle for field goals. The red zone was pretty bad for Texas Tech that week, and they still handled you, and it still wasn't competitive. So that game could have easily been 40-7, 40-7. But I will say Texas Tech, man. I mean BYU. Because in the beginning of the year they were playing like they weren't really dominating teams. They weren't dominating teams. Some of their games were pretty close. I'm trying to pull up their schedule. Some of the games were pretty close, but lately towards the end of the season, really after that Texas Tech game, they've been just kind of handling teams, man. They've been handling teams. Let's go look at their schedule. Let's see if it loads. Yeah, like look, like BYU, they beat Colorado 24-21, 38-24 against West Virginia. They had to beat Arizona in overtime, a game where Arizona had multiple chances to win. Utah, they beat Utah 24-21. Like at the beginning of the season, they weren't dominating teams. That's why I wasn't as high on BYU at the beginning of the year. Was just because they were kind of just messing around. Like it looked like they were due for a loss. But after that Arizona State game, they've really just been dominant. They beat Iowa State 41-27. They obviously lost to Texas Tech 29-7, but then they handled TCU 44-13. They handled Cincinnati by 12. They beat UCF by 20. So I think they're just starting. Maybe it took them a while. I don't know because they have a true freshman quarterback. But I think they're starting to come into more of who they are. I just think it's a bad matchup at the end of the day. I really, really do. What Texas, and again, this was my analysis on the first game. I had the spread was like 12.5 or 10, 11, 12.5, and I had Texas Tech to cover it because I just think it's a bad matchup. Texas Tech, the reason I think they are so good this year is because their defense is just insane. They have a top 5 defense in the country, top 5, top 10 defense in the country, and it's not just we're in the Big 12 and we have more talent type of defense. No, I think they have a defense that can go toe to toe with, not every team in the country, but they can go toe to toe with a good hand of the teams in the playoff mix. But I just think this is a bad match because what BYU is good at is what Texas Tech is best at defending. BYU is a tough, physical, attack you through the ground type of team. Between Bachmeier and Isaiah Martin, the running back Martin, like they want to run on you. They want to put the ball on the ground. They want to get the yards. They want to let the ground game open up the pass game. And what did Texas Tech do to them the first time? They completely took that away. They completely took away the running game. They could not run the ball, in which they were forcing Bachmeier to throw the ball. That's not what he's great at. Granted, he is, I think, a true freshman, so like he still has a long way to go, but he's not a great thrower of the ball. So that was just a recipe for disaster. That was just a recipe for disaster. And I just don't think playing this game again, 4 or 5 weeks later, is going to change that much. I really don't. I really don't, man. I really don't. I really don't. But I will say, I am going to take BYU though. I am going to. I know I just said what I said. But I am going to take BYU because something about this being a Big 12 championship game, something about this having real stakes and implications. By taking BYU, I definitely mean taking their points. Texas Tech's going to win. I mean, Texas Tech is going to win. Texas Tech is going to win. But the line's sitting at 12.5 right now. I do think BYU can cover that. Again, Big 12 championship game, season on the line. I think BYU can come in, hang around, give Texas Tech some trouble on the offensive side. But I do think at the end of the day, it's going to be too much for Texas Tech, or too much for BYU. Texas Tech, they just have too much talent. They're just a much better team. And I think this is one of those times where, Texas Tech can win by 10, 31-21, 24-14, whatever score you want to do. I think they can win by 10, but I also think BYU can still cover this one. It's going to be interesting because I think this is the game that everybody's looking at in terms of the playoffs, because there's a lot of teams right on the bubble. A lot of teams are going to be rooting for Texas Tech because Miami, Notre Dame, Alabama, especially Miami and Notre Dame, if BYU loses, then Miami's safe, or Notre Dame's, I'm not going to say either one's safe, but if BYU loses, I know, you're not supposed to punish the conference championship. I don't think that relates to this. Let me tell you why. BYU is out of the playoffs right now. They're not in the playoff field. They are literally ranked number 11 right now. 10 is the cutoff. Notre Dame is the last team in the playoff at large. So BYU is ranked 11. I understand not kicking a team out of the playoff field that's already in going into the conference championship game. Last year, SMU, they were already in the playoff field. They lost. They did not get kicked out. So I understand that. Alabama, if they lose a close game to Georgia, they're already in the conference field, the playoff field. I don't think they're going to get kicked out. But a team who is not in the playoff field, I do not think the committee will have the same regards for. If BYU goes into this game and they get handled and they lose, and since they're already not, because I think it's a situation where this team's not making the playoff anyway, so why does it matter if we move them? They're not in the playoff anyways. So I think it's going to be one of those situations where BYU, they get handled, they lose, and it's not a competitive game. I think they could drop. And all they need to do is just drop one spot for Miami to go up one spot, and for Miami and Notre Dame to be right next to each other. And I think the committee will put Miami over Notre Dame if they are right next to each other. If there's still a gap, if there's still a team in between Miami and Notre Dame, I think they're gonna pick Notre Dame. But if it gets to the point where they are right next to each other, 10, 11, I think they're gonna pick Miami. I really do. So this game, has a lot of implications, man. A lot of implications. But we are taking Texas Tech BYU plus 12.5. But we still like Texas Tech to win comfortably. I'm sorry, but we had to save the ACC for last. I mean, as a Louisville guy, I obviously root for the ACC, but this has probably, I'm not even being hyperbolic. This is probably the worst possible outcome to the season that the ACC could have. If you at the beginning of the season, if you would have said, what is the worst case scenario of what's going to happen in the ACC this year? I think what's going on right now is even worse than what you could have even came up with. I really do. Because you got to think, man, this is a conference at the beginning of the season. They had 2 teams in the top 10 preseason. Clemson, Miami, Clemson at 4. Clemson was the 4th team in the country. Miami at 10. A couple weeks into the season. You had 3 teams in the top 10. 3. Obviously, Clemson lost the game, but they were still. Clemson didn't get booted out of the top 10 until they lost to Georgia Tech, which was, I think, like their 3rd game of the season, I think. 3rd or 4th game of the season. But yeah, a couple weeks into the season, you had 3 ACC teams in the top 10. Because Florida State beat Alabama, and they were on fire for the first few weeks. They were in the top 10. You had Clemson in the top 10. You had Miami in the top 10. 3. So if we would have told you none of those teams would be in the top 10, or none of those teams 1 week left of the season is in the top 10, I would have been like, hell no. And even that, you still, halfway through the season, you still had at one point 5, 6 teams in the ACC ranked in the top 25. And now it's literally just 3. And now there's a chance that the ACC does not get a playoff team into the mix. So if you're, I don't consider myself an ACC homer. My team just happens to play in the ACC, but I'm not like ACC do or die type. No, no. I love seeing chaos. I love seeing chaos in college football. I think that's what makes college football great. I love seeing chaos. Like, I want Virginia to win, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, hey, let Duke win. Let's see what happens. But yeah, Virginia and Duke. Virginia is only they're a 3.5 point favorite right now. 3.5 point favorite. It is extremely surprising that this line is that close. Like, I am genuinely surprised by that. Excuse me. Because we watched these teams play not that long ago. And we watched Virginia dominate them. Like, I don't I don't understand why this line is so close. I would have thought it would have been maybe 5, 6.5 at least. Because we watched these two teams play. What? That was 4 weeks ago, I think. 4 weeks ago. Let me take a look. Yeah, November 15th. That was 3 weeks ago. We watched these teams play, or 4 weeks ago, I guess. 4 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, I guess. And Virginia dominated them, 34-17. 34-17. So this is a game where I think Vegas just knows something. They just know something. So when Vegas knows something, 8 out of 10 times they're usually right. This Duke team is just so perplexing, man. Because like what? They beat Clemson. They beat Wake Forest. You know, they beat NC State. They beat Cal. But they lost to UConn. They lost to Tulane. Like, I don't get it, man. I don't get it. But nonetheless, I think this is going to kind of be a situation of the first game. I think Chandler Morris, he's a good player, man. He's a good player. He's dual threat, run, passing. And I just think Duke has just been way too inconsistent this year. Like, they've just been way too inconsistent. They've lost to freaking two Group of 5 teams. They've lost to freaking UConn and Tulane. Like, it's making me mad that they're even in the ACC championship game. You should be, if you lose to 2 Group of 5 teams as a Power 4 team, you should be eliminated from any. You should be automatically disqualified from any contentions to any type of championship game. Any 2 losses to a Group of 5 team. I just think Virginia's the best team. Like, as a Louisville fan, I've been like rooting against Virginia up until a few weeks ago when Louisville just completely shit the bed because they had the tiebreaker against us and there was a chance that they lost. We could jump ahead of them. I just think Virginia has just been the most consistent team in a very inconsistent league. Even their 2 losses, they lost to Georgia Tech. Virginia lost to NC State, which was way early in the season. And then they lost to Wake Forest in a game where Chandler Morris got hurt. He didn't play like the whole second half, late of the game. Like, that game could have been completely different if he didn't get hurt. They probably would have won if he didn't get hurt. And I just think Virginia, again, they've just been the most consistent team all year. I just can't put my faith in Duke, man. I just really can't. So we're gonna take Virginia -3.5. And we don't see the doomsday scenario. We do not see the doomsday scenario. Um, we'll just not talk, but we'll just give my quick picks on some of these other Group of Five games. James Madison, that's a big number, man. I do think Troy covers. I do think James Madison wins, but that's a big number, 23.5. I do think Troy covers. North Texas and Tulane, man. That's is John Summerall's head going to be fully in it? Is it? I think it is. But watch out for North Texas. That offense is absolutely elite. What's his name? Mestamaker. I mean, I think he's going to be at Oklahoma State next year. But I got North Texas. I think Mestamaker, he's just playing at an insane level. North Texas, they are just scoring the ball at will. And yeah, I got North Texas on that. I do have Boise State against UNLV. I will not be surprised if UNLV covers. I think UNLV can cover, but I do have Boise State winning that game. But yeah, I think that is it. If you have made it this far, as always, I greatly appreciate it. This is the first year we've done this, man. This is the first year we've done this. I know I've maybe touched on the backstory a little bit. My brother Roman, he runs this Real Spiel podcast channel. Big in the local media network here in Louisville. And he knows I love college football. And he was like, bro, do you want to run a college football podcast for me this year? And I said, hell yeah. And I've been wanting to do something like this for a while. On TikTok, you can find us at Real Spiel Podcast on TikTok as well. I make TikTok content all the time, and it's so hard. It's so hard for me on TikTok because TikTok is about keeping videos short and quick, and it's so hard for me to talk about college football on TikTok on videos that are a minute to a minute and a half to 2 minute long, 2 minutes long. So that's why I jumped at this, because I can talk about college football all day. I love college football. It's my favorite sport. I played basketball growing up, but college football has always been the next right there with basketball. Over the NFL. I'm not a casual NFL fan. I know what's going on in the NFL, but I don't really root for a team. I root for the Ravens because Lamar Jackson was drafted to the Ravens and he went to Louisville. But I don't really consider myself a Ravens fan. But just going back to the BCS days, man. Those days with Kirk Herbstreit and Brent Musburger calling games. I've just always been a diehard college football fan. I think it's the most exciting sport in all of sports. The pageantry, the excitement, fitting 110,000 people into a stadium and they're going crazy. The NFL is just not getting that. Man. So that's a little bit of the background here. And, so if you've listened to these episodes, I, again, greatly appreciate it. We're trying to build this channel, try and grow this channel. But yeah, enjoy the weekend of college football. Conference championship weekend is here. We will be back to, discuss all the games and recap the games. We'll be here on Sunday to talk about the final playoff rankings. We'll see if anybody gets screwed. We'll see what changes these conference championship results will make. So yeah, stay tuned. I appreciate it. Thank you.